Hello everyone and welcome to Where to Win webinar series. My name is Noor Basha, Senior Marketing Manager at WinWire Technologies, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Just before we start the session, let me highlight a couple of logistic details. During the webinar, if you have any audio issues, please feel free to dial in through telephone details provided to you in your email. We will take up the questions at the end of the session, and you can start posting the questions in the questions dialog. In addition, if you have any questions post-session, please feel free to drop email at marketing@winwire.com, and we will try to answer as many as questions offline as well. So today's session for the topic is modernize your collaboration environment, or what we call it as SharePoint 2013 upgrade made easy, where we will discuss in detail an efficient and cost-effective solution for upgrading your existing SharePoint to SharePoint 2013 or Office 365. So today's presenter for the webinar is my colleague Mr. Akhil Haidar, who is the VP of Technology Solutions at WinWire Technologies, and he brings over 14 years of experience in the IT industry, during which time he has provided technical and management consulting services to several well-known organizations. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Akhil.
Thank you, Noor, for that introduction, and thank you for setting up the precedence. I really appreciate it. We're going to kick off the discussion this morning about modernization of your collaboration environment, as Noor, you mentioned. And I'm going to talk through various case studies and various lessons learned and various approaches around upgrading and migrating from older versions of SharePoint to the latest and the greatest from Microsoft, whether it be in the cloud or in Office 365, or whether it be on-prem. So having said that, as always, I don't know why this freezes. Okay. So who we are is a brief introduction into us as a company. WinWire Technologies is an IT solutions and services company, and we are based and headquartered out of Santa Clara, California. We have offices in Chicago, New York, Atlanta, and Houston. And we have an offshore development center in Hyderabad as well as Bangalore. And we are a pure Microsoft consulting services firm. We are a managed partner of managed certified gold partner of Microsoft in collaboration. And overall, our expertise has been in SharePoint as well as mobility and cloud applications. We excel in building not just technical solutions to problems, but also as an information management company, we try to make information actionable for enterprises.
Akhil, for some reason your screen sharing is gone. Yep, we are back.
I apologize. Having some technical challenges toggling my screen, so I briefly stopped and escaped from the presentation. Anyways, so today's agenda is, it's a 1-hour session, so today's agenda is going to cover why to modernize, what is the latest and greatest technologies from Microsoft. Then we're going to briefly cover the business decisions for moving to a new SharePoint environment. And then we will cover some technical challenges and technical issues that institutions need to be aware of when moving to a new SharePoint environment. Lastly, we will talk about what are the options that are available for organizations to consider when migrating to SharePoint 2013, and some of our key lessons learned in more than 100 plus migrations that we have done over the last year and a half, 2 years, as we have helped organizations migrate from older versions of SharePoint to the latest versions. So if you're a typical organization, your SharePoint farm has been around for a while, and it could have multiple issues. You could have experimental deployments with minimal planning, which result in what we call site sprawl. Since search was never an enterprise feature in older versions of SharePoint, you have irrelevant or archaic results shown up. You have ungoverned and unstructured content, and typically SharePoint has become a document dumping ground for a lot of organizations. And 2010 to 2013 upgrades, whenever you considered them, were so elongated in scope and so lengthy in process that you just ignored it and continued working with your existing systems. In rare cases, sometimes we run into organizations where content is neatly organized into pre-planned containers and web applications. Documented processes and governance structures exist, and search is working beautifully because you've integrated it with some third-party tool, or you're leveraging fast search, which was previously deployed. It's rare that organizations are in the second spectrum. Most of the times we run into organizations which are somewhere between the middle of the two spectrums. Now, as you move and evolve as an organization, the most important questions to document and qualify before you begin any sort of migration or modernization efforts is to qualify and quantify the business impact of your decision to move to a newer version of SharePoint. So what is that going to, what do they gain by going to the new platform? If you don't leverage the awesome new features or the document management or the capabilities of SharePoint, and if it's going to be just a document dumping ground, then you really need to take a careful look at the longevity as well as the ROI of your investment into SharePoint. One other impact which is very important to document is what is the cost and who's going to pay for this new platform in all its variations, ways and means and forms. What I mean by that is there is a cost impact to the infrastructure, there is a cost impact to the resources, there's a cost impact to the business. All of those need to be measured, qualified, and quantified when it comes to documenting your ROI as you move to the new version of SharePoint. And lastly but not least is, as you go through this upgrade migration process and modernization process, what will be the service discontinuity that will happen, and how long will typical business sites not have their SharePoint environment? Those are good, important questions to consider ahead of doing any type of migration. Now, there are some technical challenges when it comes to moving to SharePoint. Those technical challenges involve an IT organization typically to be able to be reactive, not proactive when they deal with situations. And that's the way we've run into issues. And the idea is to be more proactive versus reactive. The investments need to be made in training and team readiness and help desk training. Your infrastructure, when you move to the new version of SharePoint, if you move to the cloud, you have to understand that you're no longer over your local area network. You're actually going over the internet and your bandwidth. And then, of course, you need to understand if you are upgrading internally or you're moving to Office 365, and what are the implications vis-a-vis content, as well as security, as well as your Active Directory and so forth. The key issue, the key takeaway from all of this is that you must and fully understand the architectural and the new capabilities of SharePoint 2013. 99% of the times we run into clients where they don't understand these new capabilities, they don't know the capabilities of the tool, and most of the times end up either procuring some other third-party tool to do the same job, or build a custom app. And it is sometimes very shocking to them to realize that SharePoint provides these things out of the box. I apologize, just having some technical difficulties with the presentation here, but moving on, this is an example of a website that we built in Office 365 for a client of ours. This was a successful migration project from their older previous version of SharePoint. And the key takeaway from this is that it's our message to the end organization is that this is the new way to work. This is the way where your organization, where your people, within your first thing that you do in the morning, come and open up this website and in a single portal place find all the different things that they need to do as a function of their job. On the left menu bar, you will see, which is the standard look and feel, is the connect piece of the communication. At the bottom of the screen, you will see video content that is available. And on the left, we have a whole menu bar with custom apps that where when I talk about custom apps is apps that are available out of the box in SharePoint 2013 have been built and integrated and configured for different users within this organization to click and drag and drop into the area of how they want to collaborate. This includes anything from booking travel to their calendar and their full integration with their travels. So as I said, our point of view on the future to work is to collaborate, connect, and communicate. The capabilities of SharePoint to deliver centralized notifications, the ability to search content and expertise in a singular place, allowing for video and audio conferencing, leveraging a out-of-the-box capability and integration with Exchange, and allowing people to share and exchange ideas in a very sort of linked-in type of feel when it comes to Yammer, and that's the previous screen that you saw, and I'll go back to it. The ability to be able to publish documents, the ability to review what is happening, and to be able to approve and reject workflows from a singular location rather than go to 5 different places in previous versions of SharePoint as you had to do, and being able to receive company information regarding news, executive announcements, and so forth. It is this capability and ability in SharePoint that is now available that we have leveraged and built for some of our strategic clients. The idea is that you have a modern, intuitive design and enterprise social aspects of business connecting through everywhere, as well as personalized content based on user time and location. So the targeted audience feel the ability of SharePoint to deliver content that is relevant to different user functions and user bases is a key for any portal to be successful. Lastly but not least is the ability to allow people to have responsive design. This was a big complaint in older versions of SharePoint, that I could not access my portal on my mobile device and be able to perform my functions. As I will show you some examples as we progress through, that you will realize that this is certainly possible. Moving back into the case study, as I mentioned to you earlier, it is an example of where, extending that example, you will notice that on this screen, you see a different look and feel than the previous screen. This is what we have called an app that we had built for this customer called My Budget. And by being able to click and drag those apps into these locations, this person was able to share that within their organization. Another view into the same organization sales site, which is something which is where this shows a full integration with Yammer, allows people to collaborate, allows people to publish content, allows people to talk to each other through suggested groups and suggested recent activities in a very social type of way. With rich integration with people search, you have the ability to search for people. You have the ability to, in real time, using a link, collaborate with them, as well as you can find people who are doing similar activities as you are within the organization and are able to collaborate, follow, like, and view their content as they are integrating within your organizations. As I mentioned earlier, in a single place, the ability to bubble up all the approvals and rejections of particular content, or the ability to approve or reject workflows in a singular location, is something that SharePoint 2013 now supports. In the old days of SharePoint, you had to go to different sites to do this, and this was a big no-no. By leveraging this capability, you don't have to necessarily do that. As I mentioned earlier, we had built this platform where we allowed the end users to customize the left section of the page where you see at the bottom, customize this area. And in that, we had built these applications or leveraged out-of-the-box applications where you could click and drag whichever ones made sense for you. As My Calendar, which allows you to actually, without toggling between your Outlook, you are in a single location able to see your day-to-day activities and understand and connect with people if you so need to. At the bottom of the screen, as I mentioned, is the video content. It allows people to, in real time, play the video, look at the content, like it, comment on it, and provide feedback on it. Moving on from that discussion, I'm going to show you a different website which was built for a completely different company with a different use case. And the primary objective of this exercise is to show you how SharePoint can actually be customized if the needs of the organization are such. This was a construction company with heavy mobile device usage. And what you see on your screen is people, they would have representatives in their field, and they needed to use SharePoint on their tablets, whether it be iPad or Windows devices and so forth. All of these intuitive interfaces were built in such a manner where these documents were published and used in the field in real time in these devices, fully integrated with Exchange. And I'm going to quickly go into a next example, which is regarding our enterprise content portal, which was built for a company with a very different use case. This company had very heavy document usage of content within their organization, and this required different content with different targeted sources to be delivered to end users. So as you can see on your screen, you would see in one side your My Documents. On your left and right side, you would see newest assets as well as training resources. This was targeted to the persona of the individual organization. The same content was delivered as this screenshot would indicate to you using a mobile device. We were able to build the site using a responsive design in such a manner that no matter which screen you came to, you were able to find the relevant information. The last piece of SharePoint that I'm going to discuss today from a technology solutions perspective before we move into the migration piece is going to be the transformational change that a powerful search engine can have. The ability to browse the content, the ability to actually get relevant content with refiners on your left-hand navigation, as you can see, as well as being able to click on a document and view it or preview it without downloading it in your screen is a powerful, powerful tool. As you can see, you can just single click onto a PowerPoint presentation, and without actually opening it up either in your desktop engine or online, you can preview the content of that PowerPoint presentation. This is something which is a very wonderful feature of SharePoint 2013. It's available in Office 365 as well as on-prem. The key takeaway from this is that relevant search content delivered to end users based on your search query and the ability to drill into the details without actually downloading the content and having to open it on your thick client. Last but not least is the ability for your Office 365 or your on-prem SharePoint to be able to have a video content being integrated with your intranet environment. The ability to actually play the video or to send the video or like the video and to create customized refiners is now all available in SharePoint 2013. Another use case for SharePoint, which was previously not very well leveraged, but that we should briefly talk about over here, is the ability of SharePoint to be leveraged as a BI platform. SharePoint allows you to build detail-oriented business intelligence platforms where multiple sources of information can be brought together, whether it be from your back office systems or from your on-prem or off-prem SharePoint information systems to be presented in a useful manner for your end user audience consumption. And the idea over here is that you can drill down to the project level, or you can actually keep it bubbled up for your execs. And it's all about being able to leverage SharePoint to do that. Last but not least, as I mentioned, is the ability of leveraging SharePoint as a public-facing WCM platform. I know SharePoint is not outed to do that in many cases, but we have built responsive websites as well as very trendy and focused websites as this particular example showcases. And as I mentioned earlier, there is an app store which is now available for apps for Office and SharePoint. Currently, there are more than 642 applications that have been published, and you can download and use these to enhance your overall SharePoint experience. This is build versus buy sort of mentality where you can actually purchase things that 99% of users out there intend to use SharePoint for. It's not free for all. You can control who gets access to what, and you can publish your application similarly within your SharePoint farm for your targeted set of users, and so forth. So as I've just covered, there are new features of SharePoint that are now available in 2013 that make it into a true robust intranet platform. There is the new app model that we just briefly covered. You saw some examples of business intelligence. You saw full work management and capabilities and so forth. So having discussed all of these things, a lot of questions come to us that, what options should we consider when moving to a new SharePoint platform? Are we going to move to Office 365? Should we move to SharePoint 2013 on-prem? Or what should we do? So the answer to that question within your organization is dependent on multiple factors, and we'll get into those shortly. But all three possibilities are there. You can go completely to the cloud with Office 365. You can maintain and stay on-prem, where you are responsible for the entire back-end SharePoint upgrade, or you can go to a hybrid environment. There are some key considerations when it comes to Office online versus on-prem. There are technical differences as well as business implications for your Office 365 versus on-prem solutions. 99% of the times we are able to overcome by innovative alternatives when it comes to technical challenges. It is the business and regulatory constraints of where content needs to be stored that limits us to move to SharePoint 2013 online most of the time. In certain use cases, a hybrid approach is also very, very plausible, and it's very important to consider that to be a viable solution where certain use cases can be split and certain use cases can be considered where a certain set of users use the on-prem version versus the off-prem version. So some considerations for using on-premise SharePoint. The hardware belongs to you. That could be a challenge as well as an advantage. So you are responsible for its maintenance, you are responsible for its upgrade, you are responsible for all the installations and configurations that come along with it. There are certain challenges which come to play into when you have to integrate with external systems such as SharePoint, such as where your data is stored, all of these. So you are in full control of the environment. The other key takeaway is that you developers have full access to your back-end system. So if there is customizations using WSP solutions that need to be deployed, you have that ability. In the case of Office 365, there are some distinct advantages for using the online capabilities. One is that if you're migrating, you Exchange, Link, and SharePoint is all packaged into one. You have a very short, robust, reduced time to market. If you need to collaborate with external vendors or customers within your organization, for example, you don't have to provision accounts for them. You don't have to go through infrastructure to them. Literally, it takes few seconds and minutes to provision an account to allow external users to come into your environment and collaborate with you. You don't have to worry about the hardware. It is accessible anywhere, anytime, and Microsoft offers a SLA which is 99.9%, and that allows you to offer SharePoint as a service as well as Link and Exchange as a service online in a very robust manner to your end users. The pay-as-you-go model is also great advantage because you only pay for the services that you use. You do not pay for anything you don't use. And if your organization as an IT organization is leveraging a chargeback model to your end business organization, this is you can charge the users that use the service versus offer it as a service for your entire organization and not have that ability. The last, there are some key disadvantages, of course, as I mentioned. There is no way to know where your data is stored when it is in the cloud. Microsoft guarantees that it is replicated in 2 or 3 different data centers for DR purposes as well as for recovery purposes and so forth, but private and sensitive data, there is no way to know where it is stored. I'm not going to go through every single item, but there is one key aspect is that you do not have, as developers, you do not have access to your back office server-side code as well as any SQL level. You are only exposed to the services that that SharePoint exposes, and you have to write code just supporting those models. The question that, as I mentioned, gets asked all the time is, can I run SharePoint on-prem and online together, and can they be aware of each other? The answer to that question is yes, absolutely. And this is a niche area of expertise, and it's called a hybrid environment. There are multiple things that need to happen on the back end for the 2 environments to be aware of each other. We've done a couple of webinars on hybrid in SharePoint. I'm sure my colleague can point you to those in the last couple of months. But at a very high level, in order for both the environments to be aware of each other, Active Directory synchronization needs to take place between the 2 environments, which means that your users are not prompted for credentials as they move between on-prem and off-prem. You also need to have a single sign-on capability such that your SharePoint servers are aware of each other. And you need to federate search such that content from both environments is crawled by both environments and is available in both environments. So, of course, pending security trimming as role-based security is implemented in both environments to make sure that relevant and secure content only shows up for the right people. So having considered, having discussed all these, we've now covered why to modernize. You saw some key examples on that. You saw what are some of your options to migrate. And now in the last 20 minutes of the discussion, we will focus on what is considered to be a successful migration and how do migrations succeed and how do they fail. A fact is that SharePoint migrations that we have run and in our experience, this is a sad state, but it is the truth from Gartner, that 64% of migrations are over budget upon completion, and 37% miss the scheduled deadline when people are moving from an older version of SharePoint, leaving a very negative feel about the platform. And the question then to be asked is, why does this happen? What are the causes and challenges behind these issues that occur? Obviously, people have done these migrations and led these migrations for many, many years. It shouldn't be happening on such a basis. And so I've actually taken a stab at it. I've gone through all the different projects that we have done in the past and collected data and come up with some high-level challenges that we continuously run into when we are handling these migrations. The first, and I've bubbled them up into this slide, and each one is going to be broken down as we go through this discussion. The first one, which is very important, is scope definition. It's very important that you audit the content and understand the full breadth of what you are migrating. If you have SharePoint deployed but are not aware of the content that actually fits in it, you are setting yourself up for failure. It is also very important to identify all the customizations and all the different integrations that SharePoint has as far as all the different back office systems that it might touch. And I continuously you will hear me talk about this, but plan for multiple iterations instead of doing the big bang approach. If you've got 500 gigs of data, there is no way you're going to go from an 07 environment or a 2010 environment into 2013 in one go. SharePoint now supports the idea of doing iterative migrations, and you should definitely consider that. As we go into different business organizations, we run into this thing all the time where business goals ahead of the project are not clearly identified. What is it that you are migrating and why are you migrating? The qualification and the ROI for that must be actually documented and agreed upon. It is incumbent upon you as an IT organization to provide that to your leadership. The effect of the ROI over time must be measurable as well as quantifiable, and should definitely increase the productivity of your end users. If it doesn't, then there is no reason to migrate. One of the reasons, as I mentioned, you saw that number 64-37%, is that one of the reasons why, as I mentioned, is why migration projects run into challenges, has to do that business is not bought into the entire project. It's important to identify ahead of time who owns the content and the applications that are running on SharePoint. It is important to get their skin in the game, as I said, and it's important for users to review and agree to migrate the content and the applications as we progress through the project. This is a big challenge for most organizations. I always run into this whenever I am involved in scoping and defining what a project should look like. It's budgeting for budget for all activities, as I say. Organizations will come to us and say, well, what do you expect, or what should we expect the budget for this project to be? And we'll give them a quote on it. That's just for our time and our effort as external vendors who are doing that work. It's important that you identify and all the internal resources that are going to be needed. You have to allocate time for your end business users as well as your IT organization to participate in the project. And of course, the testing time is mostly grossly underestimated. And this has nothing to do with testing whether the site is up or not. This has to do with the relevant content is in the right newly designed site, in the right location with the right tags and all of that. And in order to manage this, it's a personal suggestion of mine that always assign a project manager to manage this project. One of the key things that people fail to do is content and data scrubbing. Cleansing of the content ahead of the migration needs to be done. What I mean by that is that you need to do some data scrubbing, and you need to ensure that the content that you are migrating is relevant content. You can leverage third-party tools for this manual analysis, or you can leverage out-of-the-box tools that are available in SharePoint, or you can do what we do in our methodology, which is to prepare content aging and relevance reports. And you'll see an example of this as I go through this within an organization. A third and most important thing to do is to implement a training plan within your organization. It is incumbent that end users not only are aware of what the capabilities of the new tool, as I have mentioned earlier, but also its push versus pull. You want to deliver the content to the users rather than having them pull it from you when they run into an issue or are asking questions. The best way to deliver this is a lunch and learn or brown bag and so forth. It's also very important to develop a communication plan ahead of your migration. One of the biggest problems that we run into consistently and constantly, as I repeat myself on this topic, is that sending out emails into people's inboxes that their site is going to be down and then not available is not the way to communicate. It is important that you actually start having hallway conversations. You start building and evangelizing the tool. You start having conversations in set meetings for 10-15 minutes where you share how the project is coming along, and you can also showcase some new features of the tool in each of these discussions so that they understand that they have newer and better tools to actually migrate leverage in their new environment that makes their job easier. Last but not least, I've been consistently and constantly asked the same question, is like, why do I need to procure a third-party tool? Absolutely not. You don't need to procure a third-party tool, or you should procure a third-party tool. It's entirely dependent upon your size of your SharePoint deployment as well as what your overall architecture of your tool set is. Data size, customization, security considerations all go into playing into that decision. However, there is no turnkey solution when it comes to doing a DB attach and so forth. This entire method requires significant downtime and will impact your end users when you actually do the migration. One of the key features that I personally insist on, and that's why you saw that example early on, is to spend time in defining the new information architecture on SharePoint 2013 as a parallel path ahead of any migration project. What I mean by that is understanding, I've already said this, the new features, but also how the entire site structure as well as the content structure is going to be organized, and leverage things like the metadata service from SharePoint 2013 to define that for use. That's just one example, but at a very high level, it's very important that the activity gets conducted. Platform governance. It's important that people know what the tool is supposed to be used for, what it is not supposed to be used for. It is also very important that people understand the capabilities of the tool and its limitations and so forth. It is important, therefore, to build a governance plan on how that entire process is managed. Branding is a personal, again, recommendation, because I always believe that it drives user adoption. A lot of times as techies, we don't get into building an intuitive user interface. And I believe that it's very important in doing this activity when doing a migration project, because it allows your users to find the relevant content very quickly and easily. And that actually will drive end results when it comes to user adoption. As I mentioned earlier, there are third-party tools that cost money, but they're reliable and market tested. They exist within an organization, and the strengths of these third-party tools are that they have an entire supporting organization behind them. They also allow you to, as you redefine your information architecture, as I mentioned earlier, they also allow you to redirect and move content, whether you are moving it vertically or horizontally, without writing a lot of PowerShell scripts and a lot of redesigning of the site and so forth. So those are some of the key strengths that third-party tools have in the marketplace. We have partnerships with a lot of premier tool sets, but it's very important to consider them for large-scale migrations because they do bring that capability to the table. And I'll add one caveat to this, which is, in our experience, it's not a one for all. What I mean by that is you can have a tool as well as a blended approach with your DB attach. So you can move the content and then restructure that content using a tool, which allows you to leverage the best of both worlds. At the very tail end of this conversation, and I'm coming up on my 3 minutes before I open it up for questions, is why WinWire? Well, we have provided thought leadership and we have built IP-led solution accelerators that we have built in our 80+ migrations over the last year that allow us to actually define a robust migration plan for you when you are ready to modernize your SharePoint environment. We are a Microsoft managed partner, as I mentioned earlier. We have business critical SharePoint and Azure certifications, and we have mobile partnerships with some key players in that market space that allow us to go to market leveraging the new environment very quickly. Lastly but not least is our execution focus. We actually have a predefined methodology which guarantees well, I wouldn't say guarantees, but it mitigates a lot of risk associated with migration projects where what you saw earlier and all the expertise that we've built allows you to deliver projects on time and on budget. It reduces the risk within your organization of a migration project failing. It significantly reduces the impact within your organization for things going bad or content not showing up, as I have already mentioned, those things. And last, it's our motto, which is small enough to listen but big enough to deliver. As I mentioned, we are headquartered in Santa Clara, California, and we've got about 4 different offices across the US. Noor, at this point, I'm getting a lot of background noise from where you are. I would like to
Yes, Akhil, thank you so much for the session. Yes, like I do have some questions coming in now. The first question from the Mark is like, can we upgrade from Office SharePoint Server 2007 to SharePoint Server 2013?
I'm sorry, the question is, just so I understand, is can you upgrade from SharePoint 2007 to 2013?
That's right.
Is that the question?
Yes, that's right.
Yes, well, absolutely you can. As I mentioned, there is no direct way of going from 2007 to 2013. Either you will have to do a DB attach upgrade into 2010, and from the intermediate environment move from 2010 to 2013, or you can purchase a tool which will allow you, like AvePoint or Metalogic or Metavis or some of these other tools in the market, which allows you to go directly from 07 to 2013. Hopefully that answers that question.
Thanks, Akhil. So there's another question from Nolan where he says, like, how do I manage downtime during migrations?
Excellent question. So the way to manage downtime is that SharePoint allows you, it depends a lot on your environment and the amount of content that you're moving across. Typically what you can do is you can convert a SharePoint site into read-only mode, and content, if it's an intranet with published content, people can still get to that content, read it. If it is a bunch of Word documents and so forth, people are still in a position to be able to download those documents and work on them locally. And what we then, during that read-only time frame, can do is upgrade the environment and change the DNS entries within your organization to redirect people to the new site as it comes live. As I mentioned earlier, this can all be managed through iterative migrations. So if, for example, if you're doing department level migrations, you can do one department per weekend, or you can do your entire company on a weekend. It all depends on the content size and throughput that you're looking to achieve. The issue with that has to do with downtime is a direct function of the total amount of content that you are moving, number one. Number two, of the restructuring of that content in the new environment. So if you are moving that content horizontally and vertically, as I mentioned, using the tool, there certainly will be a downtime. And the way to manage a race condition for people to go into it is by converting the site read-only over weekends and migrating that content. We successfully did this for our clients, as I mentioned in the example on the screen that you saw earlier, where we converted their existing SharePoint 2007 site to read-only mode for a given department on a weekend, whereas the rest of the departments were live with their 07 environment. And as the 2013s would come into play, leveraging networking and leveraging DNS entries, we were able to redirect people to the right location and with minimal impact to having downtime and so forth. Hopefully that answers that question. For more details on this, definitely please reach out to us and we will be happy to answer more detailed questions.
Thanks, Akhil. So I have the question. Like here it goes. Like, how do I move content database to SharePoint 2013?
I'm sorry. What was the question again? There was distortion on the back.
How do I move content database to SharePoint 2013?
Content databases to SharePoint 2013. Okay. So the question is slightly not clear to me, but from my clarity or understanding of it, I am trying to understand that you have content in your content databases in 07 or 2010, and you have to move them into 2013. And if that's your question, then the simple way to answer that is that all we talked about, all the content tools that are available can be leveraged to do that, or you can do what we call the DB attach method, where a database is attached and detached from your existing site collection and then attached to the new location, and it goes through an upgrade process. That's an official way that Microsoft supports that migration process, and in that all your content that is stored natively within that database comes along and is brought into your new site collection or web application or what have you not in the new SharePoint environment.
Thanks, Akhil. So other question, how do I prepare for upgrade? What needs to be cleaned up?
Very good question. As I mentioned earlier, that content aging and content stage reports need to be generated. You need to run some queries using PowerShell scripts within your SharePoint environment that can be leveraged to showcase what those should look like. I was trying to find that one slide, but I don't have it here. But that content aging and staging report actually shows you when content was last touched, when it was modified, and when it was created. And once you actually document that, you are able to create a report and understand that what content needs to be actually moved over and what can be ignored or archived. And once that is done, a report, then you can selectively, using the tool set, or using the DB attach method, choose what pieces of content get moved over. The idea basically is to cleanse that content ahead of the migration, so you don't have to move the content. I'll give an example of our existing client where we did this. They had 3.5 terabytes of data in their SharePoint environment with multiple versions of multiple documents and so forth. When we actually ran the content aging report, it came out that 1.5 to 1.7 terabytes of data had not been touched in the last 5 years. Obviously, we had to iteratively go through and remove all that content in the staging area ahead of the migration, and we had to get buy-in from the business and the stakeholders to do that. We successfully were able to do that, but again, that's an entire activity that gets connected, that gets done during the pre-migration steps, which is what I was trying to pull up over here, which is what you see on your screen right now, which is the pre-migration, then the migration, and then the post-migration activities that get conducted. Noor?
Thanks, Akhil. I have a last question for the day. Finally, like, how do I validate a successful migration?
How do I validate a successful migration? I'm glad that I put this slide up. Well, you perform some quality checks. You review the targeted content with the site owners. You compare the source and the target environment, and you have certain variables that you are tracking, like content size, created by, modified by, date, variables, owner of the document, and you ensure that is how you ensure that your content is compliant. Now, there are also third-party tools that can validate that it's a like-for-like migration. So no content has changed between point A and point B. And those tools are available for government regulatory purposes as well as for validated systems which require that level of tracking.
Thanks, Akhil. Thanks for the insightful session and taking up those questions. Again, I would like to thank everyone for joining this session. And we apologize for technical glitch initially, and thanks for being patient with us. If you have any further questions, I would request you to drop us email at marketing@winwire.com, and we will try to answer those questions as soon as possible. Thank you. Have a good day. Thanks, Akhil.
Thank you, Noor. Take care. Have a good one, everyone. Appreciate you joining the call. Bye.